going to assign the static IP address, the host name, and the certificates to our SME appliance. Now, in the previous video, you should have received an IP address from DHCP on your console screen. If you don't use DHCP, then you probably should have watched our next video, which is using the SMEConfig to assign a static IP. And so at this point, I'm now going to SSH into my appliance using the IP address either handed to me from DHCP or statically assigned using the SMEConfig in the previous video. And again, I need to do this as the SMEConfigUser. I enter in the password and I do SMEConfigServer. And when I hit enter there, it tells me that I can now access the config server on port 8080. So let's see what that looks like in my browser. And so here is the SMEConfigServer. And again, it's going to allow me to do three things: set up the static IP addresses, the domain names, and assign an SSL certificate. So I'm going to click to configuration. And the first thing I'm going to do is set up the host names by clicking on the server host name setting. When configuring your host name, you simply need to give a FQDN for the appliance. And so in my case, this is going to be learn.storagemadeeasy.com. Now, if I press save, we automatically fill in suggested names for the web dev and for the S3 domain. Now, if you can't do subdomains, that's perfectly fine. You can do webdev-learn or S3-learn. Or if you don't intend to use these services in Storage Made Easy, it's fine to have these filled in and just not set up the register these host names with DNS. So I'm going to go ahead and hit save because I do want to be able to use all three of these for my demos. Once I've hit save, I'm going to hit back to main screen. The next step is to assign my network settings. Now, if I've already used the SMEConfig tool to assign a static IP address because I'm not running DHCP, I can skip this step, or I can just look and verify that my settings are correct in this screen. So the first thing I need to do is input my static IP address, my subnet mask, and my gateway. If you have something more complicated like needing VLANs, then please contact SME support at this point. So I only have one DNS server. I'm not using IPv6, and this is my IP address, subnet, and gateway. There's also an option down here, apply to SMEConfig only. Again, this is if you have multiple NIC cards, you're using VLANs, you're using something a little bit more complex than we're showing in this video. I'm going to go ahead and hit save and back to main screen. The last thing that I need to do is set up my SSL certificate. Now, if you don't have a certificate, that's really not a big deal. I have another video where you'll be able to use CertBot to get a certificate from Let's Encrypt. And if you really don't want to go through the process of applying for a certificate or using a certificate to demo our appliance, know that the appliance does come with a self-signed certificate. However, that self-signed certificate is going to make browsers come up and tell you that it's untrusted. So I don't want that. I'm going to go into the setting, and in this setting I need to paste three different things. I need my public key, my private key, and my certificate chain. And so I have those. So I'm going to paste my public cert, going to paste my private key, and I'm going to paste my certificate chain and hit save. Afterwards, I'll hit back to main screen. And now that I've done all three steps, I can press apply. After hitting apply, I get a summary screen informing me of the DNS names that I'm going to be setting up, my IP addresses, and my certificates. If I'm happy with all of these, I can press apply. Once I hit apply, I'll notice that if I go back to my console, that I'll have a number of saves, so that my system has gone out and it's saved all of the new configurations that I've given it. Now that I've done this, I need to reboot my server. And I can do that by scrolling all the way to the bottom of the window and pressing this button, Reboot the Server. and then I need to press it one more time. At this point, my VM is going to reboot, and when it comes back up, I will have the proper DNS names, IP address, and certificates applied to it. And just to check that everything has worked fine, I'm going to navigate to my system, and I can now see that I have a prompt, my DNS is working, and that I have a proper certificate. This concludes using SMEConfigServer to configure your Storage Made Easy server.